Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for the delay. I hope everyone is having a good afternoon. My name is Stefan Redding Lounge. I am a school board commissioner, and I'm standing in for the chair of the Teaching Learning Committee today, who is typically Kalila Slater Harrington, who has to miss today for an unforeseen conflict. So welcome, everyone. I see Commissioner Scott Woodruff. Good to see you. Welcome to today. Um, and I am going to start by sort of laying a little bit of the ground rules for today, and then I will take roll to see who is in attendance for us. So, good afternoon. This is Commissioner Redding Lallinger. I would like to welcome you all to the December 9th meeting of the Teaching and Learning Committee. If you've not done so, please mute your phone or your computer. Anyone who does not mute their device may be muted by the call moderator or removed from the call. Additionally, please turn your camera off if you are not a board member or the CEO and her staff. I will now read a roll call of the board to identify who is present in the Teaching and Learning Committee. Commissioner Chicas Guzman. Okay, looks like Commissioner Chicas Guzman is absent for today. Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. Oh, Commissioner Chicas Guzman, you are present. Okay, great. Good to see you. Welcome. Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. Okay, not hearing or seeing Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. We'll check back in a few minutes. Commissioner Scott Woodruff.
Commissioner Scott Woodruff, present.
Wonderful to see you. Good afternoon. And as I said before, Commissioner Slater Harrington is unavailable for today's meeting. So to start with, we have a few items on the agenda. We will then discuss procurement for the Teaching and Learning Committee for today, and then we'll get into public comment, and then we will do our next steps and we will adjourn. So first up on our agenda for today is an informational presentation. It is about the 26-27 district calendar. So I would ask the relevant district staff to come on camera and give us the informational update on the calendar, please.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Good to see you all. Thank you for being here.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for having us. So I am Dr. Swinton Buck, Deputy Chief Academic Officer, and I'm here with Simon Berenbaum, who is the Director of Grading, Assessments, and Scheduling. And under the leadership of Chief Dabrowski, we are going to present to you the school year 26-27 calendar recommendation. Advance. Sorry, here we go. Okay. All right, so our agenda, I will talk through some calendar considerations, and then Simon will talk about the proposed adjustments. As you are aware, the board did a preliminary approval of 26-27 calendar, but there are some updates that we wanted to make sure you were aware of, and ultimately the board must decide on. So here are our board strategic priorities. Our calendar development and design are anchored in our board priorities, mainly to support high quality instruction, overall wellness, operational efficiency, and family engagement and how we support that work. And so as you'll see the full calendar, you'll see how those priorities are supported in the development of the calendar and the considerations that we're offering today. All right, so I spoke about this a little. So last spring, the board did approve the 26-27 calendar. We are here today presenting some considerations and some updates to that calendar. And then next week during the board meeting, we will be presenting to the full board those considerations. I am now going to hand it over to Simon.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Swinbuck. Good afternoon, everybody. When considering the calendar, there's a couple different things that we have to take in mind. There are some, of course, legal requirements for what a school calendar looks like that are determined by both COMAR and our contractual agreements with BTU and PSASA. We also have to take into consideration dates that occur on all calendars during the 26-27 school year timeframe, including state and federal holidays and religious observances. We also take into consideration past practice, just what the district has been doing previously about professional learning days and wellness days. And we, of course, we also consider the calendar's impact on student attendance. Some of the state requirements that we need to make sure that we're considering are including that we have 180 school days. That's 180 school days for students that add up to at least 1,080 hours, and that it happens within a 10-month period. In order for one of those days, school days to count as one of those 180, school has to be open for 4 hours during the day. And of course, this can't happen on Saturdays or Sundays or holidays. There's also some specific holidays that we are required to recognize in our calendar. You can see the list there. And then the BTU requirements that we have include teachers working no more, or teachers and all BTU employees working no more than 190 days. So that's 180 school days plus 10 days for professional learning. The proposed adjustments are very minor compared to what was approved by the board already. The first one, though, is a requirement. One of the things that was not included in the previously approved calendar is a day off for election day. It is a requirement that we have this day off. So we would propose fixing this by having Tuesday, November 3rd, 2026, closed for staff and students for election day. Of course, by taking out this day, it does require us to add another day into the school year somewhere else to make that 180 requirement. And the other thing that we are asking you all to consider is to move the start date back by 1 week, meaning making it earlier by 1 week. The reason for this is that we have a very late Labor Day this year in 2026. And this will allow us to make sure that we're ending school at a reasonable time. So we would propose that the first day back for teachers would be Tuesday, August 18th, and the first day back for students would be Monday, August 24th. That would give 2 full weeks of school before Labor Day. But with such a late Labor Day, it happens at approximately the same time in the calendar, which we'll see on the next slide. So there's compared to what was previously approved, there's only 3 months that would have any sort of adjustment. For November, you can see that November 3rd date now becomes election day, or it was election day, so now it gets recognized as election day. So that would be a holiday for both schools and district offices. And then in August, you can see that the first day of school for students moved back from the 31st to the 24th. So this is what the August calendar would look like. And then for the June, it would mean that if you count up 180 days, we have the last day of school being on June 11th with 3 possible inclement weather days, meaning that we would definitely be done by June 16th. And those are all of the proposed changes. We have a lot more details about the calendar, all the relevant quarter end dates, and everything else. You can see the full calendar all in the appendix to this presentation. And we are happy to take any questions that anybody has about the calendar.
Thank you, Simon and Dr. Swinton-Buck. I appreciate it. That was quick and easy. And again, as you noted, the board did preliminarily approve a 26-27 calendar, which is why we're only looking at these relatively few proposed changes. So we've had time to consider this. But that being said, I know when we considered it, for instance, Commissioner Scott Woodruff, you were not yet on the board, so you may have some questions, and Commissioner Chicas Guzman, you may have questions as well because you weren't on the board either. So I'd like to open it up to my colleagues to see if they have any questions either about these changes or about even the preliminary calendar that was approved preliminarily a year ago and can be found in the appendix. Commissioner Scott Woodruff?
Sure. Thank you for that. Just can you talk a little bit about the Labor Day, like where Labor Day falls and how that shifts, and kind of what changed in your team's thinking between it being approved, the previous version that was shared to now?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year, Labor Day falls on September 7th. And so traditionally, what we've done is start school for students 1 week before Labor Day. But what that would mean is that we would essentially be adding, if we push back this from the proposal that you see on this slide right here, if we were to have the first day of school be on the 31st instead, that would mean we'd have to add essentially 5 days to the end of the school year. And if you count the days there in June, that would add the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th. The 18th is a federal holiday. That's the Juneteenth Observance Day. And so the last day of school would then be on the 21st, and that's without any snow days.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know that sort of 2 days before Labor Day feels very early, but it's actually only by the calendar 1 day earlier than what this year's school calendar is. So by the number of days in August, it's only 1 day earlier, but it feels early to say 2 weeks before Labor Day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your question. Do you happen to know what the county, Baltimore County, is deciding in light of Labor Day falling here? And I only ask because I know many parents rely on area camps for their children in summer, and camps often go based on what city schools in the county are doing. So are we aligned with Baltimore County if we make this change, or are we different from the county if we make this change?
That's a good question. We haven't done that comparison for other school districts, but I will say that if camps, I guess if it was like a multi-week camp, you might run into problems, but by moving it earlier, it actually makes it less likely that parents would have like a gap in coverage between the end of camp and the start of school. So it might save parents, myself included, 1 week of having to find some camp or other daycare. So we will definitely check to see what the county's doing and get you that information.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And then another question I had, I know we've talked a lot about early release days, specifically seeing much lower student attendance on those days. On the other side, I know I've talked to teachers who have appreciated when they've fallen at the end of a marking period. So there's a little bit of tension here. Have you gained any further insight, or what feedback are you all hearing, any updates sort of since the last time we did this, either on the plus side or on the negative side about early release days? Are we still seeing really low student attendance? Is it still, teachers still appreciating it? Just curious to hear. And then the last thing is, if you could speak to, I don't remember why we did this, but I'm looking at October, and it looks like we've got an early release day on the 15th and then another one on the 23rd. I'm sure there is a rationale for that, but if you could just, as part two of my question, speak to that, please.
Yes, we are hearing the exact same thing that you're hearing, which is essentially that attendance does take a hit on those days. But we're also hearing from teachers and administrators how much they value those early release days at the end of the quarters to make sure that grades are entered and that they're entered properly and correctly, that students have opportunity to do work up until the end of that quarter. We're maximizing instructional time and there's not that lull, because we know that we have a little bit of time at the end of the quarter to grade pay things that come in at the end. We do take a hit on the attendance side on early release days, but we are hearing from families that they at least appreciate that those early release days are on Fridays, is one of the things that we're hearing. And we are hearing from schools that they appreciate the early release days for that time. So it's a trade-off. It's easier for us on the operational side to make sure that report cards are correct and go out on time. It hurts us on the side of the attendance, but all in all, we think it's worth the trade-off. And then for the August 15th early release day, that's a day that is devoted to parent-teacher conferences. So we try to make sure that parents who don't have the opportunity always to meet with teachers and school staff after school due to transportation issues or job issues, or it just gives parents another opportunity to meet with their students' teachers and sort of putting it near the beginning of the year to help make that initial connection. Also, you'll see that, yeah, so that's the reason why we have that early release day, but we don't have it throughout the year because, again, it's a trade-off between the low attendance and the benefit that we get from the parent-teacher connection.
So we're both talking about October 15th. Is that the one you're talking about? Yes.
Yep. So October 15th is the one that's devoted to parent-teacher conferences, and then October 23rd is the last day of quarter one.
Okay. So there's a red box for parent-teacher conference windows. So I guess maybe that's just missing for quarter one. It's supposed to be in that. The version I'm looking at doesn't show where parent-teacher conferences happen, but you're saying it's that week, so there should be a red box there that denotes parent-teacher conferences like it does for quarter 2, 3, and 4. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we don't have scheduled an after-school parent-teacher conference window for quarter one,
I see.
Instead we have that early release day on October 15th.
In lieu of, okay, but
Yes.
it doesn't exist for the other ones, with the rationale being, it sounded like you were saying at the beginning of the year, there's a benefit to doing it that way rather than doing it after school. I was just trying to understand the rationale why it's different for different reporting periods.
Yes. We're trying to give students and families every opportunity to make that sort of initial meeting with teachers and school staff at the beginning of the year. Well,
Okay.
I mean during the school day, during that early release day.
Okay. That's interesting. I mean, I guess I would love, just by way of follow-up, maybe when we present this to the board, just a little bit more data, whether it's anecdotal or otherwise, that says that that's a really good trade-off there, and that we're really getting a lot of bang for our buck by doing that. Because I see the benefit in all the other early release days. They seem to have a strong rationale. That one I'm a little bit less bought into, but I'm curious just to maybe if we can come back with some data, and I can ask some folks in the interim how they feel about that as well.
For sure.
Appreciate that. Any other questions from commissioners about either these changes or the calendar itself? Okay. Well, thank you both. Thanks for working on the calendar. I know it's not the most fun thing to do, and in some ways you can't always win, but I appreciate your work on it, and thanks for presenting it to us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Of course. All right, next up, we have an update on the district literacy goal. I know that I've previewed that presentation. Looks like a slightly more comprehensive presentation on where we are relative to that goal and what we're doing about it. So I'm looking forward to this. If I could ask the relevant district staff to share their screen and come on camera to give us that presentation, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Kevin Cuppet. I'm the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. Happy to be here this afternoon. So greeting commissioners and guests. Joining me is Dr. Joy Guthrie. She'll be running the slide deck and participating today in the presentation. I do want to point out that she is the recently PEPT Director of Literacy here. So congratulations to her. I try to congratulate her no matter where we are. So we're going to roll through this. There's a lot to cover. The next slide, we'll see what our agenda is for today. We are really focusing on the alignment of the literacy work that we have to the board goals. We're going to share some data on our current progress, talk about our literacy priorities with specific attention to certain strategies, And this came up in a previous policy committee. It's time to start raising awareness around the Maryland pre-K through 3 literacy policy. So we're going to dig into that today. We'd love to get feedback from commissioners about their reaction to that as far as what next steps would be. We have some plan, but you represent the people, so it would be important to hear your perspective. All right. Next slide. So you can see that literacy certainly lines up with board priority 1. That's an easy connection, but we're going to talk a little bit about the family engagement around literacy and mathematics in our later presentation, as well as this equity-based focus to the work that we do. So let's talk a little bit about the goals. These are the Board of School Commissioner goals. There are one specifically here, which is increase the percentage of students proficient on that MCAP ELA literacy assessment. The goal 40%, but not only will this goal be important for literacy, but it certainly connects to the performance that students would have in mathematics, another goal for that, as well as getting students on track for graduation. So let's see how we're doing in the data. So if you look at the first chart here, this is the MCAP assessment, as you all know, that is administered in grades 3 through 8 and in 10th grade. This is that 40% target that we're looking at. You can see across all grade levels, we're trending in the right direction. Very excited to see that. With particular increases, significant increases at 3rd. We don't have a star on 7th, but I'd like to shout that out in the middle grades, in 10th grade. So we have percentages increases of 5.9, 5, and 8.1 respectively. So congratulations to our central team, our school leaders, and our teachers who are making that kind of growth possible. In the next slide, you'll see the MCAP ELA just year over year. Prior to MCAP, we had some different assessment names, but going all the way back to that 2014 school year, you can see that we have steady growth. Of course, we all know the gap in the data is from our time during COVID. But if you notice coming out of COVID, congratulations to us at City Schools, and by that I mean everybody but me because I'm new, not having a significant drop after that COVID time is a testament to the efforts of the school district. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Guthrie to share about our literacy priorities.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Our district-wide
afternoon.
literacy vision centers on equitable access to high-quality texts, explicit foundational skills instruction, and writing embedded throughout content. This is a pre-K to 12 vision that supports every learner. In K to 2, our priority is building early foundational skills such as phonemic awareness, phonics, decoding, and spelling through explicit daily routines so students develop the early reading skills needed for later success. In grades 3 through 8, we deepen our comprehension and thinking by expanding sentences, strengthening analysis, and using writing routines that help students explain ideas clearly and connect learning across content. In grades 9 through 12, the focus is applying strong writing and discourse to analyze complex texts, synthesize information, and communicate clearly across disciplines to prepare students for college and career. And now we're going to highlight some of the strategies that we're utilizing in order to support our priorities. Our 4 core literacy priorities guide what we expect to see in every classroom. We begin with strong instructional materials with fidelity, teaching the curriculum as written to ensure consistency and access for all students. We also emphasize key instructional routines that build foundational skills, support discourse, and strengthen comprehension. Prioritizing time with writing is essential because writing deepens thinking and supports learning across all content areas. Finally, we ensure teachers receive coherent, aligned professional learning so the support they receive directly reflects what we want students to experience in classrooms. The cycles of professional learning guide our quarterly instructional focus and ensure alignment across the district. In Q1, we focused on strengthening purposeful planning and using instructional routines found in our materials. Currently in Q2, we deepen student thinking through strong questioning and student discourse. In Q3, we're going to elevate writing using the writing revolution. And then in Q4, we're going to refine writing for transfer across content areas. Each cycle follows a simple continuous improvement process, which is plan, do, study, act. So instruction, student work, and professional learning stay tightly connected. We're going to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit more about the Frog Street curriculum as well as the Writing Revolution. Each week in Frog Street, students engage in daily phonological awareness routines that help them hear and manipulate sounds. Instruction moves from letter naming to letter sound connections and eventually to correct letter formation. These brief, intentional routines provide repeated practice that strengthens early reading and writing skills. This progression ensures all learners build a strong foundation for literacy. The Writing Revolution is a clear, evidence-based way to build writing skills. Instruction is explicit and sequenced, starting with strong sentences and moving toward full compositions. This is not a separate curriculum, but rather we embed the strategies into the curricula we already are teaching. It works in any subject and any grade level because it strengthens students' ability to think, organize ideas, and communicate clearly. The key to this work begins at the sentence level. This year, the Writing Revolution has been embedded in our ELA and science curriculum within specific grade levels. The methodology builds writing from the sentence level up. It strengthens comprehension, organization, and academic thinking. The data clearly shows TWR is impacting student outcomes. Students participating in the Writing Revolution instruction showed a 4.7 average gain in year-over-year writing scores in comparison to their peers who did not participate in this instruction. And on this slide, we actually just have a visual that supports that, which shows the 4.7 average gain in year-over-year writing scores for those students who participated in the TWR instruction versus their peers who did not participate in instruction and only had a 2.1% gain. The district is embedding TWR strategies directly into our existing HQIM to strengthen writing across content areas. Our resource development team of teachers and coaches are partnering with TWR and content teams to create aligned, easy-to-use materials. Literacy coaches received training and access to a new TWR AI tool this past July to support with implementation. Beginning this fall, we embedded TWR resources and rolled them out in grades K, 3, 6, and 9 across ELA, and grades K, 3, 5, 8, and 9 in science. We will continue to gather feedback, revise materials, and expand development for additional grades in the upcoming school year, where we are looking at what continued implementation in the identified grades, in addition to grades 1, 4, 7, and 10, since those will be the initial cohort of scholars with this work. The Writing Revolution is just one highlight of our current work we are doing, aligned to our 4 priorities. We continue to ensure that we are monitoring our progress toward these priorities from 2 lenses, the teaching practice and the student learning. In terms of teachers, we are focused on completing learning walks to ensure quality instruction, as well as ensuring that the professional learning they are engaging in is aligned to the priorities. For students, there are several other measures in place to monitor our progress. This includes curriculum-embedded assessments, student work artifacts, and benchmark data so that we can better understand what students know and what they have learned.
Right. So as you may know, the state of Maryland has come out with a new Maryland pre-K through 3 literacy policy. We wanted to walk through some of the components of that, share a little bit of information, because this will be something that's impacting all of our districts here in the state of Maryland, including here in city schools. I did want to note, and this will come up later in the slides, that we are actively taking requirements in the literacy policy and examining where that needs to be in our policy and regulations. And some of that work will be coming forward for discussion as well. So Dr. Guthrie?
Thank you. So Maryland has launched a new statewide pre-K to 3 policy aimed at ensuring all students read proficiently by grade 3. There are several key areas of focus within this policy, including the science of reading, teacher training, and universal screening. This policy also supports with ensuring there are supports for multilingual learners and underserved communities to support with the elimination of the achievement gap. Additionally, this policy also indicates the need for early intervention and progress monitoring through student reading improvement plans, otherwise known as SRIPs. These plans help to ensure targeted and timely support for struggling readers, as well as ensure that families are properly notified of their students' performance. Ultimately, this policy promotes that students must meet reading benchmarks. If benchmarks are not met, the student will be considered for retention. This slide outlines key expectations for grade 3 promotion and retention starting in the school year 27-28. Students must meet end of the year reading benchmarks, and if they are not on track, schools must engage families early and document outreach or obtain parental consent before retention is considered. The policy also allows for good cause exemptions where retention is not appropriate. For example, due to a student's disability, English language development needs, documented intervention progress, or other extenuating circumstances. Our role is to provide strong daily instruction, monitor progress, and keep families informed so students receive the support they need as they grow as readers. So currently, we already use student learning plans, early literacy tutoring, and universal screeners in our current practice here at City Schools. We're aligning student reading improvement plans, SRIPs, with our current learning plans process to avoid duplication and increase coherence. Policy changes will be supported by professional learning opportunities for stakeholders, family communication tools, and revised school level processes. Additional guidance about the retention is forthcoming from MSDE, but we have begun updating our current policies this school year within our district to ensure our preparedness to implement this policy. Additionally, we have released Learning Together guides for grades K through 5. These guides help parents engage their children to support their understanding of grade level expectation. It provides activities for them to do at home and helps parents have conversations with teachers regarding their student progress. Additionally, the Student Learning Plan is a strategy to support us in getting to our district goals of all students feeling supported, all students reading at grade level, and all students meeting grade level math expectations, and all students graduating on time. As such, we want every student to have an SLP and that the SLP is grounded in the conversation with families so that they serve as true partners in a student's learning and growth. So last, this timeline maps out our current progress towards meeting the requirements set forth within the pre-K to 3 policy. We are on track with each major milestone as we have several things in place currently that aligns to the policy. This is inclusive of having teachers complete training for science of reading through SUNY and AIMS courses available online, conducting a universal screener using DIBELS, beginning to upgrade our multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, by refining the alignment of assessments, selection of evidence-based interventions, as well as the processes of our tools aligned to MTSS. In the next year, we will focus on utilizing the student reading intervention plans, and in the 27-28 school year, implement the promotion and retention requirements. At this time, I would like to turn it over if there are any questions.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Joy and Kevin, for the presentation. I'd like to open it up to my board colleagues for any questions on the literacy goal update.
Yes. Hello. How are you doing today? First,
Doing great.
hear me.
Doing well. How are you?
Yep, we
Oh,
can hear you just fine.
All right. Okay. Here's the question that I have. There has been a move statewide and nationwide. We're kind of moving away from that foundational aspect of grammar. I see this currently in especially with our ELD, English language learners, that this has become essential, yet I don't see it really embedded in moving forward. I see it also in a lot of emphasis on the reading capability, which is, the input from outside, but the outside input of writing demands that we deal a little bit more on the development of grammar, the development of the usage of language. How are we doing that to increase our literacy goal? We've done a really good job, don't get me wrong, but I think that's almost kind of been pushed to the sidelines a little bit. And I just want you to speak on that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Guthrie can go into the standards associated with grammar, but I hear what you're saying. This is a call or a conversation I've received multiple times in my career. I do think embedding our work in the science of reading is the step in the right direction, because if you read that body of research, it does talk about the importance of students understanding grammatical structures or the syntax or any of those components of that building block of high quality writing. So we agree that that needs to be an area of focus, as does spelling. That encoding correctly is really important for students. But Dr. Guffey, you want to talk a little bit just about how grammar is approached in our standards and how we might see that in our instructional programming?
Absolutely. So we do know that there is a progression of students understanding first of listening to the sounds and then being able to articulate those sounds verbally and then translate those sounds into writing. However, what we are ensuring and then also continuing our practice of not doing things in isolation. So as students are learning this during their foundational literacy block, we're also ensuring that they're getting the time frame to apply that during small group time and then also during that whole group wit and wisdom or their knowledge-based comprehension aspects. So we want to make sure that they're concurrently happening and not being isolated. Also, during that comprehension block, what we're focusing on is that very exact thing, making sure the grammar practice is embedded as well within the curriculum. We have one that does make sure it rolls out those concepts of, spelling patterns, of making sure that students are writing and embedding their writing into their reading works as well. So we just want to make sure that people are still doing those things concurrently and not just isolating them. But we do have time in our instructional block as well that has time for both of those things to occur.
Yeah, and that same kind of emphasis of continues up through our secondary levels as well. Of course, everything starts at the foundation. That's why we call it foundational level. But in our secondary curricular areas, grammar does need to be an area of focus. And I think that was for a period of time, not as you indicated, not only here in Maryland but in other places, was not given the kind of attention that it should have. And we think our emphasis on writing will hopefully rectify that situation.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta-Bey, for the question. Commissioner Scott Woodruff, do you have any? Oh, I'm sorry. Kenyatta-Bey?
I'm glad to make a joiner to that. It is that when we're talking about reading, we're talking about, as once again I said, is input. No matter whether or not you're newly developing a language or you are just at first, bringing it into your focus, which is ELA. You're bringing it into your focus. A focus on input and not output becomes one-sided in my mind. Okay, maybe I'm, but I spend my days with EL. I teach ELD. Okay. English language development, as I do teach ELLs, but I see it across the board that this and this is in the middle school arena, which is like a reinforcement arena. And I agree with you that it has been kind of overlooked. Are we looking to move harder on trying to bring in those tools that allow people to express themselves better?
No, I would say the answer is yes. I think the writing revolution work that we're doing will definitely get to that. It prompts kids towards expressing themselves with appropriate grammar. So I think that it's going to be a change that'll occur over time. But I agree with you that the students need to be able to express themselves within our language effectively, no doubt.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta-Bey. Commissioner Scott Woodruff?
Yes, thank you for these updates. Just a point of clarification. I know you mentioned DIBELS as being used as a screener. Is that the sole universal screener and that will meet the MSDE requirements? Yeah.
Yes. Oh, so go ahead, Joy.
I was going to say, great question. Currently, we are still awaiting. MSDE is going to provide additional universal screeners that may qualify for this policy. But right now, DIBELS is the one that we're utilizing that meets the expectation. But we are looking for additional guidance, which MSDE has not yet put forth about what their expectation around those screeners are.
Okay. And then I was glad to see just kind of like what our rollout has been in terms of trying to get ahead of the policy kind of rolling out. My question is, when you look at like kind of where we are this school year in the NTSS, like upgrading that and then moving to next year, utilizing the SRIP. I imagine there's like a heavy lift data wise for everyone involved. So can you just talk about presently kind of what are you seeing on the ground, and like what has been the heaviest lift, and then kind of future forward, if you could just share a little bit about what you anticipate kind of being some of the challenges when we move into like the actual implementation.
And can I just, that's a great question. Can I clarify though, when you say a heavy data lift, are you saying teachers having a strong understanding of the data that's available to them, what that means? How do we interpret that for instruction?
Yeah, so I think all of those things. So if we're looking at like trying to, ensure that third graders are at the benchmark set by the state, there are a number of ways that we can track to see if they're on track to reach that goal. There's a number of groupings and to determine kind of which plans work for which students. So, and some of this, I heard you mention AI, and I see there are some different tools to support some of this. And I think from a classroom teacher's perspective, if that is not what you're kind of used to moving through, that it can be heavy lift. So yes,
So,
yes.
yeah. So I'll have Dr. Guthrie go into DIBELS itself, but regardless of where a teacher is in a student's learning journey, there's going to be data available for them. Now, Dr. Guthrie referenced in there that we are looking at the alignment of those assessments so that we have the information that's available. And what I really advocate for is that we can use that data at the district level. Principals can use it at a school-based level, and teachers can use it at a classroom level. Just one assessment that does all that. DIBELS does act as that tool. It does provide information that's very actionable for teachers, specifically about the students in front of them. It's a way for principals to monitor achievement across grade levels within their school. And we can certainly look at that DIBELS data at the district level. I will tell you the art of interpreting that data and looking into the Amplify platform and making decisions about what you're going to do with your students is the learning process. I know that our literacy coaches support our teachers with that. But there's also importantly, the universal screener's job is to flag for students that are having current reading difficulty. There's often additional kind of drill down assessments that we can do to go in and kind of diagnose what those challenges are. That's another level of assessment that a teacher can do to get to the right instructional response, for lack of a better term. We also have iReady data that we have at the middle levels, and I believe it goes in the high school too, doesn't it, Dr. Guthrie? iReady?
This year, we actually for high school adopted Galileo platform, which is supporting with that piece of information. And then we do have an additional assessment that we're administrating to middle school, which is ROAR, just to get that additional level of foundational literacy, just to understand what supports may be needed for those students.
Yeah, so that's an alignment of the assessment system that we need to do. And then we have to make that data more than just data that a teacher sees. If the teacher sees the data and says, I'm not sure what to do with that, then that's not best practice. We need to be able to provide supports for those teachers through our literacy coaches. So that is a big lift to be able to have an instructional response based on the data that I receive and any additional assessment that I need to do as a teacher. Dr. Guthrie, do you want to add to any of that?
I just think the only thing to add is that additionally, part of the policy requires that a student has had 2 years of intervention prior to this retention consideration. So it's also going to make sure that students have had the adequate support prior to that third grade year and not just necessarily waiting until that third grade benchmark to say, this child is not making progress. Now what do we do? So we want to make sure that they have been flagged. So for example, any child in kindergarten or first grade who may be performing under that benchmark level for their grade level in the upcoming years will now be flagged to get that level of support. So that way, by the time they reach that third grade level, hopefully that intervention has helped that child and they're no longer below or well below that reading benchmark, but they're actually on target to meet those expectations. So I think there's also some clarity around the policy in the sense of that it's intervening for students, not just necessarily at that grade 3 level, but also prior to make sure they're getting the supports as well, utilizing that data.
Yeah, that circles back to the part of the question you asked about the MTSS. We are currently in pretty extensive conversations here in the district about how do we upgrade our MTSS? How do we make sure that we have evidence-based programs that are available so that students can access those? How do we make sure we have adequate training? So we're doing some, we've had an existing ELT program, early literacy tutor program. That's been in place in many of our schools, but that really does need to be built out broadly so that we have solutions for students at different points along that MTSS. So that is an area of focus right now for the district.
Thank you. We don't have to go into this today, but I am just thinking about you highlighted this briefly, but I'm curious about some more in-depth implications for multilingual learners and students with disabilities. And then a question I would like us to explore today is kind of with the grade level promotion requirements being tied to reading proficiency, like what is our plan to proactively communicate this with families? I think having the family guides there is a step in the right direction and is a reminder to me that I need to take a look for my own family and use that as well. But I am curious is how we can kind of get ahead of that to highlight for families what is being offered, what support is available for their child before we even get to that retention.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So coming soon to the board will be updates on IKEA, IKEA and B. And that's going to provide a lot of information about how we're taking this literacy policy and moving that into our own policy and regulation. And so getting language in there that clearly state what we need to do to align, but also then how do we operationalize that? So that conversation will continue with the board as we move through that. But we have a lot of details that we would still need to work out. And I think that information will continue to come to the board through various presentations that we'll have to do as we move forward. So the IKEA would be the next stop in that set of information.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott Woodruff. I have a question. So I appreciate the overview of what's happening in pre-K with Frog Street. I appreciate the writing revolution overview in terms of how teachers are getting training and support. Can you talk to me very concretely, if I'm a K through third grade teacher this year in city schools, how I'm getting trained and supported on evidence-based science of reading instruction, specifically from the district? What does my learning look like on a overview of the year, specifically on phonemic awareness, on teaching phonics, on vocabulary, on fluency, on comprehension? Like how many hours, how many days, how much is from the district, how much is from literacy coaches? Like what does that look like as concretely as you can be for your average teacher, K through third teacher in city schools this year?
Yeah, so I'll let Dr. Guthrie talk about the role of the literacy coach in the school, but undergirding a lot of this, implementation of science of reading and principles, right? That's what we want our instruction to be informed by. Part of that comes from the vehicle of the high quality instructional materials that we use. So Foundations, Hegarty, and Wit and Wisdom all are designed to use those science of reading principles. So that's always a good first foundation for what teachers are doing in practice in the classroom. In addition to that, Dr. Guthrie is going to talk a little bit about how we work with literacy coaches, how our cycles of professional learning tie to that. And I'm less familiar with this, but Dr. Guthrie, if you could talk a little bit about the science of reading training that we do for our teachers. I think we do that for new teachers as well when they come into the building. If you could share more about that, that'd be great.
And not to interrupt, can you also just include for building leaders too? So
Sure.
How, if they are, how are school leaders being trained as well? Thank you.
Yep.
Not a problem. I can start with the science of reading training, which happens for every new teacher that enters into the district, whether they are K-3 or 6-12. They do receive a introductory 3-day course in the summertime during New Teacher Institute that does explain the 5 pillars to them and talks about it in terms of the curriculum and then as well as outside of the curriculum. What are the practices that you would see that are tied to it and support across the all of the content areas? So that's layer 1 to them. Throughout the school year, I will say literacy coaches do employ that professional learning for teachers during that collaborative planning sessions. So that is really based upon how the school contexts look, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, for 45 minutes versus 90. That's really dependent upon the school context. However, that's also variant upon the teacher's level of familiarity. So we have some coaches that are doing a PLC style where they are literally just taking the activities and engaging with role play and talking about the why, and then having them explain how that ties back into the pillars. Then we have some that are now taking it a step further and going deeper about the corrective feedback aspect of it. So now that you're teaching it, how is the level of feedback that you're giving students where there are misconceptions and miscues? How are you then providing them that support in order to give them back a necessary response? So it's really varying upon the teacher level as well at every school context as how coaches support with that. Additionally, we do work with school leaders as well. So during their quarterly leadership institute at this past one, we actually talked about what does it look like at the school level and then gave them tidbits of when you're walking into a classroom, this is what you should see in order for good practice to occur. So we try to do it at bite-sized level, but through that through line and then coming back through the cycles of professional learning. So quarter 1, we were focused highly on planning and preparation, making sure people understood the why of what they were doing. It's not enough just to pick up the curriculum and try to read it, but do you understand what you're teaching it? How does that tie back into the principles of science of reading and science of learning? And then for you, what does that look like at the school context? What does mastery look like versus what does misconception look like? And how are you planning for these, right? And then moving into quarter 2 now with student discourse and questioning, although we're not having students teachers rewrite a foundations lessons, right? Because we want to maintain some authenticity to it. We also want to make sure that they are cueing for and listening for certain aspects of the lesson in order to address if a student is not providing the correct response. And then moving into that wit and wisdom piece with comprehension, we're also trying to lend itself forward to making sure teachers are not necessarily direct facilitators or just instructors throughout that entire time frame. How are you leveraging back to the students so that they are now able to articulate what they're reading, what they're understanding, and then also addressing them through that speaking piece as well. So we're trying to make sure that there's a clear connection back to those 5 pillars and that they're just not looked at segmented opportunities, and then making sure that every professional learning opportunity that's occurring is that through line and thoroughly connected to it as well. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
That did. That was very comprehensive. I really appreciate it. I'm going to ask one follow-up and then I'm going to cut us short because this is a very engaging conversation. We still have a number of things on the agenda. I'm really curious in how you're I heard you a number of times say, some of what teachers receive depends on their level and their essentially their skill. How are you assessing mastery of some of these concepts, both for teachers who are, in K-3, but also, we train all the teachers for a reason. We think it's important for everyone to really understand the science of reading and the 5 pillars and how that shows up across the content. So, if it were a classroom context, we wouldn't just say we taught it, so you learned it, right? So, or assume that the way we taught it was, was what it needed to be. How are you getting a sense for levels of mastery, whether it is, when you walk through a building and you see certain practices happening, or whether there is some way that at the end of my 3 days, I, as a teacher, am demonstrating some degree of mastery of these concepts? Because just the root of this question is I see varying levels across the district, and it just makes me wonder, about the training component. That's the root of to sort of, not to be transparent about why I'm asking the question.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the transparency. So thank you for the question. I think the first mechanism in order to determine readiness, I'll say for teachers, is utilizing that self-study checklist. I'm just going to use foundations as an example, but the self-study checklist with foundations. And then when we're looking at a specific activity, we're looking at how well has the teacher taught it and as aligned to the curriculum. So if we're seeing a lot of variance as to what's written on the paper, then we know, this may be a tier 1 implementation. So we we need to really go back and talk to the teacher about how they're implementing the curriculum. Let's talk about the why. Let's talk about why is it that they need to do skywriting versus dictation, right? So we're going through and then working through. If we're seeing that they're meeting the qualifications of evident on that checklist, but we're not seeing that translate into student work or student mastery on a certain skill set, now we're talking through what was that misconception piece. So you're teaching the thing, but how are you checking in then with students, right, in order to determine how that's working? That can be done through the self-study checklist. Again, utilization of data analysis with the students, whether it be an informal day 5 checkup versus their unit assessments for foundations. But additionally, we also at our level have introduced a learning walk tool that codifies kind of what they're seeing at the classroom level as well. So it may not necessarily be the checklist. It's also 4 or 5 brief questions that we utilize as well to talk about how successful has this been. So we are not just leaving it in the terms of like, hey, how you feeling about this lesson? Let's move forward on it. But we're trying to utilize concrete data from the curriculum, which is that self-study checklist, from the data, which is that student set data, and then via our own district learning walk tool that we use as well.
Thank you. That was very comprehensive. I appreciate it. It's a great conversation. We need to be having more of them. As you showed with the literacy policy, I want us to get as far ahead of the curve as possible. In many ways, City Schools was ahead of the curve in thinking about the science of reading compared to many of its peers, but I just want to make sure we are, sustaining the momentum and making sure that implementation is deep and it is wide. So I appreciate these answers. I think we need to continue to engage on it. And I do believe that you two are showing that we are, the literacy policy well, and you're ready to anticipate the challenges, of which there will be many, including a new assessment, including the first year of implementing the retention policy. There's a lot of things that are going to make this very difficult, but I appreciate the way you all are diving into the nuance here. So thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I'm going to move us forward. Sure. I'm going to move us forward in the interest of time. So we're going to move right into, thank you everyone for your patience. We're a little bit over time. I'm going to move us right into the district math update, and then we will move to procurement from there. So if I could call the relevant district staff, please.
Yeah. So I'm staying with you for this one. And joining me is Mr. Chris Franklin, who is our acting director of mathematics right now. And Joy is going to pull up the presentation. We purposely created a very parallel type of presentation structure so that it would be familiar as we move through that. So the first thing we do is our agenda is parallels identically to our literacy agenda, alignment and data, our priorities and specific strategies, as well as a discussion now of the Maryland mathematics policy, which is also new to us. All right, next slide. Again, same alignment, always about high quality instruction in anything that comes out of the curriculum department, but we always focus that on that connection to our families as well as our equity considerations. Returning to the district goals in mathematics, the increase is at 25% of students will be proficient in MCAT math in grades 3 through 8 and the Algebra 1 assessment. And Mr. Frank is going to share that we got changes coming in mathematics up at the high school level, and we'll key into that. But again, success in mathematics is helping students move towards that graduation goal. Let's talk a little bit about our successes and our current progress. Again, this is MCAP administered 3 through 8. We also have our Algebra 1 grade. And remember that in Algebra 1, some of those test takers are in 8th grade and some of those test takers are likely in 9th grade. And so we do have our middle school students accessing that. Some gains around 3, 4, 8, and Algebra 1 we're seeing. Next slide, Julie. And then this is the comparison of our gains over again, going back to that earlier mark around 2016-17, you can see that we had a little bit of dip coming out of COVID. That dip was experienced not only here in the state of Maryland, but across the nation, and has been a challenge for districts ever since to try to move students back up. As you can see, we're almost at our pre-pandemic levels at this point. So again, kudos and congratulations to not only our central team, but most importantly, our school leaders and our teachers who are doing this work every day. And so now we're going to switch over to our mathematics priorities, and Mr. Franklin's going to take it from here.
All right, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to root us in our, I want to ground us in our vision for City Schools Math. It is rooted in nurturing strong and confident math thinkers taught by skilled teachers who make math joyful and meaningful. For school year 25-26, we identify key levers that set students up for mathematical gains. In pre-K to 2, we focus on number sense. When students think about numbers, they should think about what they are, how big or small they are, and how they relate to each other, and how they change when you start to add and subtract them. It also includes being able to use mental math to make reasonable estimates. Grades 3 to 5 focuses on understanding fractions. This means students begin to think about whole numbers and pieces, such as 2 halves make 1 whole. And we also emphasize multiplication and division fluency, so students become comfortable with how those operations work across different strategies, enabling them to solve problems more efficiently. In our middle grades, we shift priorities to proportional reasoning. This means students understand and apply multiplicative understanding in relationships to compare to amounts. For high school, specifically in Algebra 1, students have better algebraic reasoning to help them notice patterns and think logically to represent unknown quantities. Because of these priorities, we have implemented strategies to support teachers in reaching that goal. We are starting with our foundation in pre-K. Teachers are implementing Frog Street. For math, that means building foundational numeracy through inclusive, rigorous, and play-based instruction. For grades K to 12, I'm excited to share that we have entered full implementation of Reveal Math, and I want to thank the board for investing their time in this new HQIM. This investment has been a great shift for the district. With Reveal Math, we are focused on key instructional components that drive student learning, including number routines, be curious activities, activity-based and guided lessons, and differentiation strategies to support all learners. In our work, we identified 4 priorities to support student achievement. Our first focus is to use Reveal Math with fidelity. We have worked with teachers to understand Reveal Math as best as possible, and in partnership with school-based staff, we developed the lesson and unit planning protocols to help teachers plan more effectively. We are also prioritizing writing through Reveal Math. This is aligned to the cycles of professional learning that was mentioned earlier to support students with their written responses and opportunities to model and reason with mathematics in preparation for MCAT. Through thoughtful development of the unit guiding documents, we emphasize key instructional routines that should be planned daily. This provides an open invitation for students to engage in math at any level and an opportunity to connect learning with their lived experiences. Lastly, we are supporting these strategies through ongoing systemic professional learning and alignment to our Coach Friday forums. During the monthly forums, coaches receive training on coaching techniques and instructional strategies they can bring back to their schools. Teachers participate in systemic professional learning that follows the same pedagogy and learning arcs, ensuring alignment across the district. As we move into full implementation, we are also supporting teachers through our cycles of professional learning. Cycles of professional learning guide our quarterly instructional focus and ensure alignment across the district through the Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle. In quarter 1, we strengthened purposeful planning through our district-created unit and lesson planning protocols, and we built on top of those purposeful planning protocols in quarter 2, where teachers used the Reveal materials to build thinking through questioning and discourse. In quarter 3, teachers will elevate writing to support students' justifying and reasoning skills. In quarter 4, we will refine student responses to build stronger writers. To aid teacher daily planning, our lesson plan protocol consists of 4 parts: assess, review, refine, and reflect. Through assess and review, teachers take time to understand the math that they are presenting to students, and they review the materials and lesson notes provided through the scope and sequence. In the refine portion of the planning, teachers must be intentional to consider the continuum of learners in the classroom. Teachers should use the embedded supports in Reveal, such as math language routines, different strategies for multilingual learners, or questions that help assess and advance students' thinking beyond yes or no answers. Through these actions, we can expect students having equitable instruction throughout the district. After each lesson, we encourage teachers to reflect on the instruction and think of their next steps with their students. We are monitoring our progress towards these goals this year through teacher practice and student learning. In class observations and coaching feedback, we are seeing Reveal Math in action through lesson planning and instructional delivery. Teachers provide consistent, equitable instruction to students, starting with those key instructional routines and we are measuring student achievement through Reveal unit assessments. For students, we are beginning to see meaningful engagement with the personalized learning platform, ALEX. Students engage in progress knowledge checks every 6 to 8 weeks, and that provides us with regular insight into how students are performing and what they're learning. These checks help identify areas where students are excelling, as well as where we may need to support for intervention if needed. With intentional teacher planning, students should regularly participate in mathematical discourse, engage in multiple opportunities for writing, and receive timely feedback to support continued improvement.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. We also want to point out, as I mentioned earlier, there is a pre-K through 12 math policy. There's some key components in here that I feel like we're very well positioned in city schools to move forward with. And they're just like our literacy policy, there are going to be things that we need to adjust in the way that we do business. There will be a continuing conversation with the commissioners as we move through this. But Mr. Franklin is going to highlight some of the components of the policy.
The Maryland Pre-K to 12 math policy was adopted in spring 2025. The goal is to promote significant improvements in teaching, learning, and achievement in math grades pre-K to 12. Full implementation is expected by school year 28-29, and the policy emphasizes advancing numeracy, accelerating learning, and strengthening instructional support for all students. There is also a strong commitment to equity by supporting multilingual learners and underserved communities to close the achievement gaps through equitable scheduling. A few key shifts to expect for school year 26-27 include implementing revised mathematics standards for grades pre-K to 8, improving or upgrading our multi-tiered systems of support for mathematics, improving parent communication and student progress using milestones from the numeracy development framework, implementing equitable scheduling practices to eliminate exclusionary tracking, and we are working with MSDE to revise the integrated Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 standards for high school. I'm excited to share that we have already begun a lot of this work by working with other LEAs across the state who also use Reveal Math in preparation for the new K-8 standards, pre-K through 8 standards, excuse me. Additionally, we have released family math guides for grades K to 5. These guides help parents engage with their children to support their understanding of grade level expectations and provide activities for them to do at home. They can be used to help parents have conversations and teachers regarding their student progress. We have also implemented student learning plans, or SLPs, to help us reach our district goals, which is ensuring all students feel supported, read at grade level, meet grade level math expectations, and graduate on time. Our aim is for every student to have an SLP that grounds meaningful conversations with families, allowing them to be partners in each student's learning and growth. Finally, in 2027 school year, we will begin implementing integrated Algebra 1, followed by integrated Algebra 2 in school year 28-29. We are also developing new secondary math pathways to ensure students have access to flexible options aligned with their academic career and interests. And lastly, we are introducing accelerated pathways for grades 3 to 8. These pathways will create an equitable process for identifying students who demonstrate mastery and providing them access to mathematics content beyond their grade level, with the goal of enrolling students in integrated Algebra 1 by grade 8. Thank you for your time, and I will turn it over to you for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin and Mr. Cuppet. I appreciate it. I will open it up to board colleagues for questions. Commissioner Kenyatta Bay.
Good day. Thank you for all the work you're doing, first of all, because you're doing a spectacular job. There's one thing that I do have a question about, and how you can explain to me how this is embedded. Because when we're talking about language, we're talking about math. Okay, math in itself is a language, and I think any mathematician would agree with that. The hardest thing to do is to move learners from a social conversation into an academic one. The problem is that with math, we do not have a foundation of a social conversation to move from. Math actually takes off. So we have to move from there into more of an implementation aspect, the real world. How do we apply? Application becomes very important at that point for it to be relevant and for it to be obtainable. This is the problem that families have had because they have not, because they're moving from one language form, pardon me, pardon me, from one language form to another. What does these new programs, these new moves help in making those conversations? Because this now is a mathematical world. You know, I mean, everything is hinged on their understanding and their ability to communicate. You have used that word communicate several times in explaining, but are we only communicating on one level, or are we moving them into a practical level of communication? And do these programs actually help in that? I know that's a long-winded question, but
Sure. So I'll let Mr. Franklin go into the details associated in the materials, but to your point, I do believe mathematics is a language. It's very universal, and students need to communicate using the vocabulary, the concepts, and the language of mathematics. And I think our reveal materials actually lend themselves well to that. So I'll ask Mr. Franklin to talk a little bit about how that appears in our high quality instructional materials.
Yeah, so one example that comes to mind are the Be Curious activities that I mentioned earlier. They use real life scenarios. So for example, in grade 3, they use pineapples. They show a slice of a pineapple, a quarter of a pineapple, a half of a pineapple, but they don't put any labels on it. And they ask students to, what do they notice and what do they wonder about it? And so they start to have that conversation in the classroom, and the teacher is supposed to purposefully start tying vocabulary to what the students are saying about those items. And so that is one way that teachers should be connecting the social aspect of mathematical language in the classroom and tying in the vocabulary. And so once students start to see that connection, they can tie it into a mathematical conversation and start to explain and justify their thinking.
Yeah, and I would even say that in visits I've done to classrooms where mathematics was instruction, I'm thinking of one classroom in particular, the teacher was very quick to prompt students to use key mathematical vocabulary and expressions and phrases when they were explaining their thinking. So instead of using what we would call very casual language, that teacher was upping the ante and prompting students to use that more academic language, just like we would hope they would do in science and social studies as well.
Thank you. Does that translate to the families, by the way? To those people who have to support the students once they leave the classroom?
As far as whether families are using the same type of academic language?
Yeah, are they understanding? I mean, more so their understanding of the language than their implementation of it. You understand?
Yeah. So I would say, like any school district, there's a range of depth of understanding across our family communities. We probably have people who are in mathematical professions, all the way through people who may have been challenged with mathematics as they came through schooling themselves. I can't really estimate exactly how many of those folks are. I do think that the learning guides for our early students in grades K through 5 are a way to have families approach that language and have resources related to that. Mr. Franklin, do the Reveal Math materials, do they have a home component as well? And can you speak to that?
Yes, Reveal Math does have family letters for each unit in each grade level, K through 8. And so each unit, each family guide does provide the key vocabulary of the unit, and then sample activities and sample problems that students will see at home so that parents can have those conversations with their children.
Thank you very much. Didn't mean to get into the weeds so much, but but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. Any other questions from any other commissioners? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Thank you all so much. For me, I'm going to hold questions for now. I just want to reiterate, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I appreciate your attention to the changes in the sequence due to the state policy. I think it's going to be a very big lift implementation-wise. I mean, we've done the Algebra 1 geometry, Algebra 2 sequence for as long as I can remember. And so this is going to be big and different. So I appreciate that you're paying attention to it now. And I look forward to engaging in that particular conversation more in the coming months and years. Thank you so much. You two are off the hook. Appreciate the presentation. Have a good one.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Folks, I'm going to move us into our procurement agenda. And I have a special request today to fellow commissioners, which is we have 2 items for procurement. One of them is coming before us from the Chief Legal Officer and the Office of Legal Counsel that would normally go to the Operations Committee. My request is that if you have not read the privileged memo that came to you all in advance of this meeting, that you hold from asking questions until you've read that memo. If you have read the memo and you do have questions, you can feel free to come off mute and ask questions about that particular procurement. So again, for fellow commissioners, if you've read the memo attached to this specific procurement, feel free to ask any questions that you may still have, although I think the memo is exceedingly clear. If you have not read the memo, please hold your questions until you have read the memo. Otherwise, I will entertain questions on that first procurement for those who've read the memo, or on the second procurement, which is one that would normally come to teaching and learning. Any questions from commissioners? Keep it open for another few seconds. Any commissioners with questions on the procurement items? Okay, I will take that as a no. So we will move those 2 procurements on to the full body, and I will move us into public comment. Can I ask a member of the board staff to let us know if we have any public comment? The last time I checked, we had no public comment for this meeting. Board staff, do we have any public comment for this meeting?
Commissioner, no, there's still no public comment.
Okay. All right. I'm going to read the quick instructions in case there are any members of the public who wish to give comment in the future, and then I will move us towards adjournment. For public comment, members of the public who would like to do so can provide comment to this committee through written or pre-recorded testimony. Please submit your written testimony or pre-recorded video the day before the committee meeting. Up to 5 individuals will be given the opportunity to provide comment to this committee. Speakers will be granted 3 minutes. All public comments should address teaching and learning related issues. Individuals or groups interested in providing comment to the committee may sign up one of 3 ways: by emailing public.comment@bcps.k12.md.us, or by calling the board office at 443-642-4095. Okay. Do I have any other questions or comments from fellow commissioners for today's meeting? Okay. Hearing none, I want to thank everyone for their participation today, board colleagues and staff alike. The next meeting of the Teaching and Learning Committee will be on Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. So this was the last meeting of the year. At that meeting, we will take up a discussion on supporting our continuum of learners, and we'll review a compliance report for policy IHBB, which is gifted and advanced learning. With that, I will call an adjournment to this committee meeting. Commissioners, thank you so much for your participation. And everyone else, have a wonderful rest of your day, and best of luck closing out this part of the school year. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.